Sir, I thank Soil Academy and Mr. Dhanasegaran for giving me this opportunity. And here is a case that though I'm not well versed in the subject, and it is a case that I'm day-to-day dealing with the cases. And I'm also thankful to all the participants, and I'm sharing my views. And if I'm wrong, anybody can correct me. And with to start with the marriage is a institution developed from before thousands of years. And even before 200 years, there was when in respect of nomads, there was no marriage. There was only cohabitation. Marriage is a development after settlement. So the persons who settle, they celebrate marriages in accordance that way to secure that they are living under one habitat and to say that this is my wife and this is my husband. And insofar as Hindu law is concerned, it has evolved from thousands of years. And here is the Hindu marriage originally that there was no monogamy in Hindu marriage. After the advent of Indian Penal Code 1860, the section 494 was inserted and monogamy was there. Before that, there was no monogamy. Polygamy was permitted. Even our culture and the earlier tradition was that polygamy was permitted. Marriages like Gandharva marriage, Rakshasa marriage, and other marriages are always there. And now, after the advent of IPC in the year 1860, monogamy alone is permissible. And after the advent of Hindu Marriage Act 1956, it specifically bars the second marriage during the subsistence of first marriage or the survival of the first wife or husband. And in respect of Hindus, to start with, in respect of Hindus, that Hindu Marriage Act is governing the marriages. Apart from Special Marriage Act to some extent, if the parties are of any religion, including Hindus. And the Hindu Marriage Act, as per Section 2, it applies to everybody who is not a Muslim, who is not a Christian, who even practice Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. They also included, they are Hindus for the purpose of the act, and they should follow the traditions and the ordainments of the Hindu Marriage Act. And insofar as some exceptions are there. Now, like Sikhs will conduct marriage in a different form. They will say that the marriage is Ananda marriage. If that is permissible, then that the law does not forbid to conduct marriage in such a manner. And insofar as Hindu marriage is concerned, for a valid marriage, that there are three things. One is that bigamy is prohibited, and the party should not suffer from unsound mind, epileptic, insurgent attacks, and other disqualifications. And he should be a Hindu. And so far as bride is also concerned, she should be a Hindu. And the bride should have completed 21 years, and the bridegroom should have completed 21 years, and the bride should be 18 years. These all things we know. Insofar as the question, I'm not going by section. Insofar as Hindu marriage is concerned, the main subject matter is that two persons should be Hindus. And whether Hindu Marriage Act permits marriage within the same sex or gender is the question. The question was answered by the Honorable High Court in Arun Kumar versus Inspector General of Registration. Arun Kumar versus Inspector General of Registration, 2019, SEC Online, Madras 8779. That in that judgment, it was a beautiful judgment written by this G.R. Swaminathan. It was authored. Section 5 was interpreted to the effect that bride cannot be equated to sex. It has to be equated to gender. Sex is by birth. Gender can be by selection. And following Section 16 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Honorable High Court has held a person claiming to be a female, though he is a male, that it permits the marriage, and the refusal to register the marriage by the registration department was quashed, and the Inspector of General of Registration was directed to register the marriage on the ground that gender, though the bride is a transgender, by birth she is a male, but she had identified herself as a female, and hence marriage is permissible. So, taking cue from the said judgment, as per the Section 5 is interpreted in such a manner, marriage within the same sex, when one of the person is claiming to be a transgender or claiming to be a female, though he is by birth is a male or a female, that is permissible. Law permits, as on today, the judgment says, as per the judgment, it permits to marry a person from the same sex. Whereas under Mohammedan law, there is no permission, there is no marriage within the same sex is not permissible. And even it is stated to be a greatest sin. It can be, it is one of the crimes that can be punished up to death. And insofar as conditions regarding marriage is concerned, Hindu marriage is concerned, that there are degrees of prohibited relationship. Namely, Section 5(4), that subpoena relationship. And I'm not dealing in detail. Now, for example, a person is a leading ascendant, then he cannot marry the said person. If one was the spouse or husband of the lineal ascendant or the descendant, the other cannot marry. And if one was the spouse of the brothers of the fathers or mothers, like grandfathers and great grandmother's brother, that he cannot marry. And the brother and sister, uncle, kinswoman cannot be married. Now, in our country, we are practicing marrying sister's daughter. That is barred under Section 5(4). It is a subpoena relationship. But however, the custom permits and law permits that such a relationship, such a marriage, then marriage is okay. It is not irregular. Likewise, Muslims are concerned, there are some prohibitory degrees of relationship. The mother or the grandmother, however so high. These are very limited numbers. Mother or the grandmother, daughter, granddaughter, great granddaughter, likewise. Sister, full blood, half blood, uterine blood. Niece, great niece, and other related persons. Aunt, uncle, and other persons. Except these persons, all other persons can be married. And fosterage is there. If a woman who has lactated during his childhood cannot be married, and his daughter also cannot be married because he is the foster mother. She is the foster mother, and hence she cannot be married. Likewise, I already said, monogamy is there in Hindu law, but Muslim law permits polygamy. Marrying for the second time during the subsistence of the first marriage is an offense under Section 494 of IPC, but it is not applicable to Muslims. it looks odd when one sect of people is permitted to marry and have 4 wives, other is barred from marrying for the second time. Either law has to be amended, nullifying, or it has to be that there should be a uniform uniform civil code to the in respect of marriage can be the question. But it has to be answered. We'll deal with that. And so far as divorce is concerned, that Hindu Marriage Act defines what are the grounds of divorce. Section 13 speaks of what are the grounds of divorce, and section 5 and 11 deals with on what grounds marriages can be nullified. Unlike Hindu law, Mohammedan law is not codified. It is governed by the four pillars of the Mohammedan law. And here is the case that the application of Muslim Personal Law Shariat Application Act 1937 deals with the subject. Section 2 of the said act, Muslim Personal Law Shariat Application Act 1937, reads as follows: notwithstanding any custom or usage to the contrary in all questions regarding intestate, succession, special property of females, including personal law, inherited or obtained under the contract, gift, provisions of personal law, marriage, dissolution of marriage, including talaq, ila, zigar, lian, kula, mubarak, maintenance, dower, and other things, rule of decisions where parties are Muslims shall be under the Muslim Persian law Shariat. So this act, 1937 Act, though being a pre-constitutional law, having regard to the that it has a force under Article 372, it is an existing law. It permits the Muslims to practice their own personal law, including marriage. Now, as of now, that polygamy is permitted. That the polygamy was questioned. It was questioned before the Supreme Court whether allowing a polygamy for one set of people is permissible. That was answered by the Supreme Court as that that the court cannot interfere in the said aspect, and it was for the Parliament to decide. Ahmedabad Women Action Group versus Union of India. AAR 1997, 3 SEC 573. They're holding for a while. Now, as per Mohammedan law, insofar as marriage is concerned, marriage requires dower or mahar. As per Hindu law, there is no, though Shidana is given or dowry is given, that is not part of the sacrament or part of the custom. But as per Mohammedan law, without a mahar, no marriage can be solemnized. Mahar is the amount given by the husband to the wife at the time of marriage when it was demanded by the wife or the proposed bride. And unless until he gives a mahar amount, the marriage will not be completed. And the marriage should be on the consent of both the parties. And whereas under Hindu law, that no such condition is there, in spite of that, we are receiving dowry. And in so far as age is concerned, as already said, that minimum age of a male is 21. Minimum age of the female is 18. But as per Mohammedan law, the minimum age is 15 or attainment of puberty by the girl or the boy. Now comes the question. A person who has attained puberty or 15 years can marry. And a girl who has attained puberty can marry. Either 12 years, 13 years, or 15 years. She can marry. Now, whether the question regarding invocation of POCSO Act, Child Marriage Prevention Act, all comes into play. That was answered by the Punjab and Haryana High Court, though the judgment deals with the subject in a limited manner. Shaukat Hussain and another was the state of Punjab and others. It has relied upon Article 195 of Mullah's Muhammad Allah by saying capacity to marriage, that it is 15 years or attainment of puberty, and hence in a case that was a case, a 36 years old man and a 17 years old girl of same religion, of Muslim religion, have married. They have sought protection from their respective parents. Unlike other cases, that court has granted protection by saying that marriage is valid, hence they are to be protected. Two questions remains to be answered. One is that what is the impact of Child Marriage Prevention Act, and what is the impact of POCSO Act. The judgment of independent thought is there. That remains unanswered. That Karnataka High Court and the Gujarat High Court has taken a different view, that this issue is pending for the Supreme Court. And insofar as divorce is concerned, it is governed by, in favor of Hindus, it is governed by Hindu Marriage Act. Section 13 deals with the grounds of divorce, or Section 5 and 12 deals with nullity of marriage. Insofar as Muslims are concerned, that it is governed by Section Muslim Law Shariat Application Act 1937, and it is governed by two basic tenets. One is Quran and the other is the Hadith. That is the sayings of the Prophet. Everything is governed by all the uncodified law, which is in the form of text. Insofar as divorce is concerned, by customary divorce in a Hindu, if it can be stated to be permissible today, I may say that it is not permissible, because Section 5 of that makes it clear, 6 of that makes it clear, no divorce beyond the statute, beyond the Hindu Marriage Act. So customary divorce as of today is not permissible, but for the fact they are not governed by Hindu Marriage Act. But insofar as Muslims are concerned, they are governed by personal law. That the divorce can be by intervention of the court, and they can also divorce without the intervention of the court. Both the forms are permissible. Insofar as the extrajudicial divorce is concerned, by the husband, there are 3 forms: talaq, ila, zigar. Talaq, ila, zigar. By the wife, it was called as talaqi tawif, lian, and it is always wife right of the wife to divorce is the kula, and the mubarat is the consent divorce. All these things can be done without the intervention of the court. And in case of talaq by husband, that it was classified as 3 forms. Talaq-e sunnat. Talaq-e sunnat. Sunnat means it was followings of the Prophet. It was talaq-e hasan, talaq-e hasan, talaq-e bida. Talaq-e hasan is the format to pronounce talaq. Talaq means that I am divorcing you. You are no more my wife. He can say at the time of when the wife is not in the menstrual circle, when he pronounces talaq, or he says that I'm divorcing you, that he has to wait for three menstrual cycles or 3 months. He has to wait for 3 months. Even after 3 months, he is not joining together, that talaq will be completed. And he can say that if he want to marry, if you want to join again, he has to remarry. Again, he can go for talaqi hasan. Thereafter, 3 months and three menstrual cycles. Even after he can join with her, like either within the period of 3 months, he can join with her without any marriage. After 3 months, he has to marry again. Thereafter, second time also he has joined. Third time, if he pronounces talaq, it becomes irrevocable. He cannot marry her again unless until the said wife marries another person and he divorces that said person. The marriage cannot be solemnized. So the husband is given a chance to join with the wife for 2 times. Third times it become irrevocable. Insofar as talaq hasan is concerned, instead of 3 menstruals, instead of 3 months, husband can pronounce talaq first on the first menstrual cycle, or after completion of first menstrual cycle, when he pronounces talaq. Thereafter, after completion of second menstrual cycle, he can pronounce talaq. Thereafter, after third menstrual cycle, he can pronounce talaq. Then the talaq becomes complete. Even after that, that permission is there. Second time he can marry, and third time alone it becomes irrevocable. Insofar as wife is concerned, our wife or the woman is concerned, she had the right of khula. And insofar as a wife or husband, there is no necessity to say any reason for divorcing a wife or husband. Non-compatibility is a very good ground for talaq or divorce. Wife is concerned, when she want to give talaq, it should be through a male member or through a group of persons. It should be communicated through a group of persons. And khula, mubarat is a mutual consent, divorce by mutual consent, or both the parties agreeing and they can separate themselves. These are all the forms in which, without the intervention of the court, they can divorce. Then comes the intervention of the courts. What will the courts do? Unlike Hindu law speaks of marriage as a sacrament bond. But here is the case that, as per Muslim law, it is neither a sacrament bond nor a pure civil contract, but it is a social contract. It's a contract. Its contract can be resigned. In Hindu law, marriage is from the divine. But though in Muslim law, some words from the Quran is recited, but still it is a form. It is purely a social contract. It can be resigned, it can be annulled, it can be nullified by the act of parties. And the courts can interfere like any other contract by invoking specific effect or invoking the provisions of Contract Act. The contract can be resigned. If the wife, and one more thing is there, that if the husband files a petition by stating that my wife, I'm not ready to live with the wife, and I have already pronounced talaq, and she has to be declared as my divorced wife. That declaration can be given under Section 34 of Specific Relief Act. Either he can file a suit to cancel the marriage, which can also be done under Section 31 by setting aside the contract or nullifying the contract, or by cancelling the contract. And insofar as women are concerned, they are given some additional rights. When the women want to give khula, she has to return the mahar. Mahar amount means the dower amount given at the earliest point of time. And as already said, under Hindu law, there is no such requirement. But here is the case here that it requires a mahar. Without a mahar, that no Muslim marriage can be solemnized. Muslim marriage, Dissolution of Muslim Marriages Act 1939, Section 2 gives some of the grounds, like Hindu Marriage Act, that Muslim women can file a petition for divorce before the court of law, stating that my husband has committed cruelty or has done all the acts contained under section 2. This will not forbid her right to go for Kula. Only thing is that Dissolution of Muslim Marriages Act is an additional remedy when by proving that the husband has committed cruelty, or he has acted in adultery, or he has deserted her, or he has not maintained her. By that, she need not return the mahar amount. If she is ready to return the mahar amount, intervention of the court is not necessary. Straight away, she can go for Kula or divorce. And if she was able to sustain, and if he was able to prove that the husband has committed cruelty, then the wife need not return the mahar amount. There ends the matter. So Dissolution of Muslim Marriages Act 1939 is only an addition to the existing and prevailing non-codified law. And insofar as Talaq-e Bida is called as triple talaq. Triple talaq was dealt by the Honorable Supreme Court in Shaira Banu versus Union of India, 2017, 9 SEC, page 1. This is a famous case where it has dealt with the triple talaq. Triple talaq is nothing but a pronouncement of talaq at one time. I am divorcing for the 3 times. Talaq, talaq, talaq. There ends the matter. That was questioned before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has nullified. Many of us have an understanding that Muslims cannot divorce by way of talaq. No more they can go for talaq is the idea or understanding of the people. But the judgment does not deal with that. Judgment does not nullify the entire Muslim Law Shariat Application Act 1939. It quashes or it declares unconstitutional to the extent Section 2A permits Talaq-e Bida as a form of divorce. To the extent Section 2 of Muslim Law Shariat Application Act is there, that it nullifies to the extent it permits Talaq-e Bida. The reason by the Supreme Court is that neither Quran nor the sayings of the Prophet is speaking of this form of talaq. President comes to power, he introduced such a practice. So, according to Justice Kurian Joseph, that no theology can go against the Quranic injunctions, and hence he has quashed, and it was declared it is against the basic tenets of law as Talaq-e Bida, triple talaq. Triple talaq alone is not permissible, but other forms of talaq is there. And there are now act has been introduced. 2000 Muslim Women Protection and Divorce Act 2019 is there. Pronouncement of triple talaq is an offense. It is a cognizant offense. And insofar as adultery is concerned, Hindu law says adultery is a ground for divorce. Whether adultery can be condoned under Hindu law, yes. Adultery can be condoned under Hindu law, but whereas Mohammedan law does not condone adultery. When a wife or a husband makes allegations of adultery as against a husband, according to me, that there ends the matter. Marriage cannot subsist. When that is a different matter when he was not able to prove. Suppose a wife is filing a divorce petition as against her husband. Husband comes up with the plea stating, no, that you are living in adultery and you are having illegal intimacy so and so. But however, I am ready to live with you. Is the plea of the wife, the plea of the husband. Whenever such a plea can be taken by the husband, is to be decided by is a crucial question, that condoning of adultery by the husband by saying that you are living in adultery, but I'm ready to live with you, is not permissible, because as per Quranic injunctions, that adulterer can be the wife of the adulterer. As likewise, vice versa. A person who's claiming to be my wife is living in adultery or my husband is living in adultery, then it is like your social contract. It is like a contract. There a contract got frustrated, it has to be resigned. Marriage has to be dissolved. Whether a Muslim can marry a non-Muslim. A Muslim cannot marry a non-Muslim but for the fact they are Jews or Christians without idol worship. A Muslim law permits marrying a other person from the religion. A Jew can be married by a Muslim, and a Christian who's not going for idol worship can also be married. That was permitted even during the Prophet period. And so far as maintenance is concerned, that only the wife is entitled, as per Muslim law, the wife is entitled for maintenance during the subsistence of marriage. But after divorce, that as per law, that she is not entitled for any maintenance. But whereas it differs to Hindus and other religions. And according to Muslim law, that once a person is divorced, he is a third party. He has no right over the other party, and the entire relationship is severed, and hence no question of any maintenance. That was a legal battle, and a divorced wife has filed a petition for divorce, a petition for maintenance, and it was allowed by the court. It was confirmed by the Supreme Court in Muhammad Ahmad Khan versus Shah Banu, the famous judgment Shah Banu case, 1985, SCR 3844. 1985, SCR 3844. In this judgment, that the Supreme Court has said that even after the divorce or talaq, wife is entitled for maintenance. There was a hue and cry, and entire parliament was assembled, and Muslim women and Muslim subjecting them to section 125 of CRPC. Divorced wife cannot claim maintenance. Likewise, husband should file an affidavit to the effect, I am agreeing the jurisdiction of 125 CRPC, and court can pass orders on merits. Otherwise, you cannot file an application under section 125 CRPC. That it almost makes it impossible for the divorced wife to get maintenance. That the said act was challenged before the Supreme Court in Daniel Latifi and another versus Union of India, 2001, 7 SCC 740. Daniel Latifi is a judgment where it is a four judges bench of Supreme Court. It has upheld the validity of 125 Muslim Women Protection and Divorce Act on the ground. Section 3(1)(a) of the Act provides for reasonable and fair provisions and maintenance within that period. So, though 125 is not permitting, 125 is not applicable, but reasonable and fair provisions should be given during the period. Because the money or the sum or the property to be equivalent to the value until her lifetime has to be, for maintaining her lifetime, has to be given is the import of Section 3(1)(a) is the interpretation of the Supreme Court, and hence it has upheld the Muslim Women Protection of Divorce Act. And in yet another case, Shamim Ara versus State of UP, it was questioned with regard to the maintenance of wife after the divorce. The Supreme Court again have taken a different view. Mere plea of divorce will not be a ground to deny maintenance unless until all the procedures have been complied and divorce is completed by complying by going over all the procedures, all the injunctions. Alone, the husband will be then only husband will be entitled to wriggle out from the payment of maintenance. And insofar as and the Hindu marriages are there, and now insofar as maintenance Muslim marriages are concerned, that though they are social contract, whether restitution of conjugal rights can be given or it can be ordered. And Section 9, unlike Section 9, Section 9 of Hindu Marriage Act deals with restitution of conjugal rights. When a wife or a husband is denying the right of restitution or denying to cohabit with the husband, they can go for an application under Section 9, seeking to restitute the matrimonial relationship or conjugal relationship. And the court can order. And likewise, a husband who is a Muslim can also, or a wife who is a Muslim can also be directed to restitute the conjugal relationship. And because it is a contract, though there is no codified law, still petition is permissible as it is a contract not yet resigned. There are duties and obligations as per the contract that has to be done. Hence, that can be enforced. Well, likewise, now restitution of conjugal rights either by a Muslim or by a Hindu is permissible. As per the present mandate has to be considered. Now, thus originally we are aware, as per Hindu law, Section 9 permits for passing an order of restitution of conjugal rights, and likewise that it was Section 9 was challenged by saying it violates Article 14, and it violates right to privacy, that when I'm not ready to live with my husband, why should I be compelled to live with my husband? Because restitution of conjugal rights includes includes the right to have conjugal relationship, and hence how can I be compelled to live with my husband or wife when I'm not willing? The said issue was taken up before the Andhra Pradesh High Court in T. Sarita versus T. Venkatasubbiah, AR 1983, Andhra Pradesh 356. So, the Andhra Pradesh High Court has struck down Section 9 by saying that it violates right to privacy. T. Sarita is a famous actress. It has struck down the Section 9 by saying that it violates right to privacy. It is against Article 14. But within 1 year, that judgment was overruled or reversed in Saroj Rani versus Sudarshan, 1984, 4 ACC 90. 1984, 4 ACC 90. That the Supreme Court has held that it is not granting of restitution of conjugal rights is only a consortium and not for sexual intercourse. And it is only for making the couple to cohabit together and not for compelling them to go for sexual intercourse. But still, in India, marital rape is not an offense. If the husband violates and commits marital rape, then there is no remedy left to the wife. If they were allowed to during the period of cohabitation, then that question was now after Justice K.S. Puttasamy judgment, that issues before the Honorable Supreme Court, whether restitution of conjugal right is violating, Section 9 is violating the fundamental rights or not. Now it is a question to be decided, having regard to the judgment of K.S. Puttasamy, saying that right to privacy is a basic ingredient, is a integral part of Article 14 and 19. Then, apart from that, a degree for restitution of conjugal rights either is a Muslim or for Hindus, it is there. Section 9 is there. As per for Muslims, though there was no special law, being a contract, it can be enforced. Both of them, when divorce for restitution, degree for restitution of conjugal rights given, what would be the remedy of the other person? They can execute it under Order 21, Rule 32 of CPC. Our court can pass an order under Order 21, Rule 33 by granting allowances, periodical like maintenance. When Order 21, Rule 32 is speaking of execution of maintenance by sending to civil prison and attaching the property of a person who's not, who has the opportunity to obey the degree of restitution of conjugal rights, but he has not done so. And when a wife or husband who is not respecting, who is not obeying the injunctions or directions or decree for restitution of conjugals can be put behind the bars, merely because being a husband or a wife, that I have not obeyed, I have not complied the order regarding restitution of conjugal rights. What will be whether a person can be imprisoned or his property can be attached or her property can be attached. It looks odd. Merely because I have not obeyed, I have not cohabited with my wife or husband, that whether I can be put behind the bars. That came to be answered by the, though still Section 9 of CPC is in the statute book, it is under challenge. Already Supreme Court has upheld. Now after Puttasamy case, Puttasamy, either for a Muslim woman or a Muslim or a Hindu, Justice Puttasamy, whether restitution can be granted is still a question. But already Supreme Court has upheld such a degree can be granted. But the Honorable Supreme Court in Meenal Bhargava versus Naveen Sharma have, though not it has nullified Section 9, it has held AR 2018 2839. AR 2018 2839. Supreme Court has nullified Section 9 or the other provisions like 28 of Special Marriage Act and other provisions of the court. But it has said in a case, I'm reading from the judgment, in a case like this, whether the High Court could force the appellant to join the company of the respondent and live with him if he had decided for certain reasons not to do so. Even when a decree of conjugal rights is filed by a competent court of law in favor of one of the spouses, such a decree cannot be executed, and the other spouse who is directed to resume conjugal rights cannot be forced to do so. It is a different matter that for not obeying such a decree, other consequences follow, including the right to the degree holder to seek divorce when that is the position, even in respect of a decree passed by a competent court of law, forcing the appellant to join the company of the respondent, and on her failing to do so, punishing her committing contempt of the court's order, that too by awarding maximum civil imprisonment in law cannot be countenanced. This was the observation of the Supreme Court. And though Section 9 is under challenge, but the Supreme Court has taken a view, decree for restitution of conjugal rights cannot be executed at all by invoking Order 21, Rule 32 of CPC. Then we should think what is the meaning in granting a decree for restitution of conjugal rights, either for a Muslim or for a Hindu. And further, unlike other religions, even insofar as Hindus are concerned, that celibacy is permitted, but Muslim law strongly advocates marriage. A man cannot live, a man or woman cannot live without marriage, and if he's not marrying for the lifetime, he cannot be a Muslim unless for specific reasons. But Hindu law permits a person to be a bachelor for his lifetime. That something is there, that this contract by the husband can be resigned during the subsistence of marriage in case is there any validity or some act done by the parties. A person who is in celibacy cannot continue to be a Muslim unless until he marries. Now comes the question that in respect of polygamy in Muhammadan law, that is a question to be addressed. That was the judgment of the Supreme Court, that Muslim law permits 4 marriages for a man, whereas it do not permit for a woman. Whereas Hindu law permits only 1 marriage. And now it looks odd for one set of people. They can marry for 4 times. Intervention of the court is not necessary for divorce. They can go for marriage even during the substance of earlier marriage. But insofar as Hindu is concerned, a man commits marriage or man solemnizes marriage for the 2nd time during the substance of first marriage, he will be punished in the section 494 of CRPC, 494 of IPC on the complaint of the first wife. Now, we are aware that the Honorable Supreme Court have struck down section 497 of IPC in Joseph Shine versus Union of India. Yeah, okay. Joseph Shine versus Union of India. Now, as per the mandate of the Supreme Court, that no person can be punished for adultery or illegal intimacy or having an extra of marital affair with the other person, even during the subsistence of his marriage with any person. But law forbids marriage for the 2nd time under section 494 of IPC. In other words, having a relationship in the nature of marriage, I'm not commenting upon the judgment. Court judgment was on the laudable object that it has because of the fact that the marriage, that the adultery, section 497 is not making the women as a perpetrator or as a person abettor, and women is not punished. Women is treated like chattels, and it amounts to it violates Article 14, and hence it has struck down section 497. But as of now, section 494 is in the statute book. Now, in a given hypothetical situation, husband is there, he files a petition for divorce, and courts are not granting divorce. Court says that for the reasons that you have not proved cruelty or not, you are not proved cessation. Hence, I'm not going to grant you divorce. And hence, his petition was dismissed. Our wife files a petition. Likewise, that the petition was dismissed. Now, the wife or the husband goes for extramarital affair, or he is living in the relationship in the nature of marriage, or he is having a concubine, or that the relationship either for or by other means is there. Now, whether that can be a good ground for divorce. Court has already dismissed his petition to divorce. Now, the court cannot forbid a person to have an extramarital affair or to have a person in the home who is not married, because 497 is not in the statute book. It gives the opportunity or it gives the right to other person to file a petition for divorce. But if I'm the wife, I'm not going for divorce. I'm saying that I want to live with my husband. My husband